Genesect has quite the backstory in the Pokemon series, and I didn't know about any of it. There was even a film of the thing too. Lore-wise, it was revived from a fossil by Team Plasma and then enhanced with technology like some bug version of Robocop. What makes it quite unique is its ability to hold drives, which determine the element type of its Technoblast attack. It also has quite a unique ability in Download, which until Genesect was only seen in the Porygon line. Essentially, during the first turn the Pokemon's on the field in battle, it takes into account which defensive stat of the opposing Pokemon is lowest and then raises the corresponding attack of Genesect. So, if an opposing Pokemon had lower special defense, Genesect would have its special attack raised by 1 stage, so pretty handy. Alongside that ability, Genesect's typing is also quite unique, Bug Steel. The first Bug Steel combo was Fortress in Gen 2, if we're going by Pokedex number, not convoluted origin history. Having this typing means that a Pokemon like Genesect resists a ton of move types, it outright resists poison, and it takes neutral damage from a bunch of others. However, it is 4 times weak to fire. In earlier gens, this would be less of an issue, but because as gens progressed, more Pokemon could learn a wider variety of move, it's exposed more times than you might think. When looking at its base stats, Genesect's pretty solid all round with a total of 600, but is slightly lacking in the HP department. Its moveset does have some excellent coverage though. However, that ends up being quite deceptive because, as we'll see, it comes up short in a number of specific battles where you need power coverage the most. But saying that, moves like Tri-Attack, X-Scissor, and Bug Buzz, which it learns naturally, are extremely useful, and important TMs such as Flamethrower, Psychic, and Shadow Claw definitely get us out of a few tight spots. But before we get into the run, let's just take a look at the rules. We can only use Genesect in battle, it's a solo run after all, but we can capture other Pokemon for HM Butler purposes. We can't use items in battle, held items are fine though. We can only battle trainers that impede story progression. If it's a wild encounter, we just have to run away. Saving during the Elite Four is a little more complicated, so we'll cover that more flexible rule nearer the time. We've inserted Genesect into the place of Oshawott. In hindsight, we should have gone with Snivy because water is more effective than grass against us. However, the real roadblock could potentially be the Tepig, so it doesn't really matter that much in the long run. For its ability, for its nature, we just want something neutral to make things a little easier. Genesect starts with Quick Attack, Magnet Rise, Metal Claw, and Screech, which ain't terrible. It's just not going to be too effective against the majority of Pokemon we'll be facing in the early game. Right now, the Pokemon we'll be facing can barely scratch us with their normal moves, but that's going to change a lot sooner than I'd anticipated. While we trounced Bianca and Cheron the first time round, after we've departed Cumula Town and reached the end of the forest, Bianca's out for blood. Her Lillipup hasn't got anything, but that Tepig now knows Ember, which we are 4 times weak to. First time through, that move sent us packing. The second time through, I hit upon a strat which ended up hard carrying us through some significant battles. Fury Cutter. Starting at 10 base power, this move will double in power with each successive hit. If you miss, hit yourself in confusion or whatever, its power will reset. Lucky for us, that doesn't happen. Even though Fury Cutter isn't effective, we've managed to build up its power enough that it can very nearly one-shot the Tepig, and after 2 hits, we're through. The gym in Striaton won't be causing us a problem. Again, should have picked Snivy here to make things a little more difficult, but I really don't think it would have made a world of difference. Why? Well, Fury Cutter's coming in clutch again. Because it starts weak, you're often in a position where the opponent ends up using a potion, allowing you to build up its power further so that you can ultimately end up one-shotting the next Pokemon in line. Another minor roadblock that surprised me was the second battle against N in Nacrene. We get a taste of a difficult battle in Genesect's future when N feels the timber because it's pretty defensively bulky and our moves aren't doing too much damage against it, so it will often outlast and outdamage us. We are able to eventually get past N and into the gym. We resist Lenora's normal types and of course we're going with Fury Cut strats, but they do have the level advantage and the damage can start adding up, especially when Watchog uses Retaliate when it comes out. Plus, that Intimidate from Herdier ain't helping in the damage department either. It's even more annoying when Watchog puts us to sleep and destroys our little Fury Cutter chain, but it's nowhere near as annoying as a bunch of other battles we've got coming our way. After passing through Pinwheel Forest, we make sure we pick up the Quick Claw from the hiker before Skyroad Bridge, because I have a feeling that this thing is going to come in handy for an upcoming battle. It ain't going to be for Burr though. In theory, our same type and resistances should make this battle one of the easiest so far. Genesect learned Flame Charge along the way, which is effective against the Venipede to a degree. as we're not even doing over half. Then when Dwebble's out, the problem here is that we just don't have an effective move against this thing. So it'll use Sand Attack to lower our accuracy and then pivot to Smackdown, which will slowly chip away our HP. So Fury Cutter strats? Absolutely. I honestly had no idea this move would be carrying us for this long in the run. And Genesect can't learn Technoblast in a run like this because it's not an event Pokemon or whatever. Plus, I can't even remember how to pick up the discs for it. But as we try to exit Castelia, we've got a little pig waiting to blow our house down. Tepig's now Pignite. Gone is Ember, replaced Flame Charge, which will totally fold Genesect. Like, all we can do is Fury Cutter and pray for this battle. If we equip one of the Aurum Berries Cherin gave us earlier, we can often tank one Flame Charge from Pignite. If we've been building the Fury Cutters on the Herdier, which has Intimidate again, then we can floor the Pignite in 2 hits. Then there's just the Pansage, which is weak to Fury Cutter, as well as the Munna. But we could have a potentially more difficult battle in Nimbasa, Ferris Wheel N. His team has good coverage and can be a killer in a solo minimum battles run because one super effective move can take you out of the game. I was under the impression that his Darumaka would cause a bunch of issues, so I headed to the Pokemon Center to pick up some TMs. One of the other realities of low level runs is that you're always just scraping by for Pokédollars. In the end, I end up buying Return and Thunder Wave, though I maybe should have picked up a move like Light Screen or Reflect instead. Turns out I was getting hung up on the wrong trainer battle. Against N, we're of course getting them Fury Cutters lined up. It's enough to take out the Sandile, but then Darumaka comes out. It ends up using Fire Punch, but it misses. Well, ain't Fire Punch 100% accurate? Well, not with Darumaka's Fossil ability, which increases its attack by 50%, but lowers its accuracy by 20%. With our Fury Cutters powered up, Darumaka's down, and it's pretty much gonna be a one-shot for the remaining Scrafty and Sigilif. So, we were worried about the battles in Nimbasa for nothing, right? Absolutely not. Elisa is gonna wall us. There are multiple layers of frustration to this fight. Number one is that Emolga has the static ability, which has a 30% chance of conferring paralysis when it's hit with a physical attack. On top of that, it will use Volt Switch its first turn to switch into Zebstrika. That thing is way faster than us and has Flame Charge. While it won't outright one-shot Genesect, its speed will increase so that next turn's already decided. In our current state, we have no way of defeating this thing. Fury Cutter can't dig us out this hole. So what are we supposed to do? Well, I'd mentioned some of the TMs available at the Poke Center before. The one we need is Reflect, which will lower physical damage taken by 1/3 in this gen at least. If we set that move up on the first turn against the Emolga, it won't help against Volt Switch, but will against Flame Charge. In combination with this, we also need that Quick Claw we got from the Hiker. This is obviously to allow us to move first against the Zebstrika sometimes. At first, I was relying on Return because I was thinking it was the best move we had. The problem here is that it's not doing over half the Zebstrika, so you're holding out on a crit to take it out. Even when the stars align and this happens, we're still on 2 lower health with the 2 Emolga remaining, and of course, they've got static. Getting paralyzed is basically a given, but while their physical moves barely graze us, at our low HP, they eventually start using Volt Switch and we're done. Now, when I said Fury Cutter couldn't dig us out of this hole, I wasn't being wholly truthful. Fury Cutter alone can't do the job, but pair it up with Reflect and Quick Claw, and maybe we can get something cooking. We start the fight by using Reflect, which is standard. Emolga hits us with Volt Switch and switches into Zebstrika. What's mind-boggling here is that Zebstrika starts off with Flame Charge, and we then hit it with Fury Cutter, but then it switches to Quick Attack, and then it uses Spark. All the while, we're building up Fury Cutter. I have no idea why it started doing that, but it allows us to get past it on 27 HP and a powered up Fury Cutter. When Emolga's out, we are now able to OHKO the Flying Nuisance and avoid static too. We then level up and are easily able to one-shot her final Emolga. So a battle that honestly would not have been feasible if it weren't for some truly baffling move choices from Elena. Our next significant battle will be against the leader of Driftveil City Gym, Clay. We have a slight advantage because his first Pokemon is the Dark-type Krokorok, and we have our trusty Fury Cutter. Can't believe we have not learned any better moves by now. On its turn, Krokorok makes a fatal mistake of using Swagger against us, adding more fuel to our Fury Cutter fire. While we do hit ourselves in confusion once, resetting the damage stack, we don't again and can knock it out. When Palpitoad's out, we've already snapped out of confusion, and one Fury Cutter will give us the OHKO. After it's down, we've got Clay's Ace, Excadrill. We've been swaggered, and also have Flame Charge. We do manage to outspeed and hit with Flame Charge, and though it crits, I'm pretty sure that wouldn't have been needed. Either way, it's a first try victory. On our journey to Mistralton, we do get given an important item from the Professor, the Lucky Egg. This will double the XP we earn from battle, extremely valuable given the XP curve introduced in Gen 5. This has some interesting effects on XP growth that won't become too relevant until much later in the game. Now, our next major battle will be with Skylar and her flying Pokemon. There's little to write home about here. In battles where Pokemon have little to damage you with, you can just rely on Fury Cutter and its increasing power to eventually sweep through them all. But let me be clear, this move can't carry us through the entire game, trust me. This move is going to become redundant quite soon. We start to see this change with Bryson in Icirrus City. Bug doesn't do so well against Ice, but they can't do a lot to us. Thankfully, we've started to finally increase our move pool with the addition of Tri-Attack and Signal Beam. Why Tri-Attack over Return? Well, at the start of battles, we often end up getting a special attack boost rather than physical, and Tri-Attack's a special move, so there's a slight advantage or at least a neutral effect right now. Plus, Tri-Attack can inflict a status like Burn, Freeze or Paralysis, which is pretty handy. Not that we'll be using it against Bryson anyway. We've got Flame Charge, and though its relatively low base power of 50 isn't great, it is enough to melt his entire team without much effort. I always hated this portion of the game after defeating Bryson because it's a bunch of low level battles and a bunch of backtracking through places where the trainers or random encounters are a huge pain. And I haven't mentioned Bianca's Pignite or Emboar as it is now because after those battles it really stopped being an issue. Either way, we're at a good enough level to one-shot the thing or survive one of its attacks because for whatever reason it just stopped using fire moves on us. No idea why. Could Drayden and his dragon Pokemon become Genesect's biggest roadblock so far? We have no moves that are effective against them, though we can technically learn Ice Beam or Blizzard. Honestly, nah. The combo of Download often raising our special attack combined with Signal Beam, which is no bug buzz but still pretty decent, can really rack up the damage. We are able to one-shot the majority of his Pokemon with the exception of Druddigon, which ends up being a range. Even Mighty Haxorus, that's all attack anyway, can't stand up to the bug. Unfortunately, the fun stops here. The issue with the first round of the Elite Four is that a lot of useful TMs and held items are off limits until we've defeated them. At this point, I don't want to use any rare candies. Why? Because with the Lucky Egg, you're often nearly 10 levels above Elite Four's Pokemon. That's more than enough to defeat them generally. But while we're over leveled now, that all changes after defeating them, because for the second round, you basically can go straight to them after completing the game. In that case, you're severely underleveled without the use of rare candies. It's imperative we deal with the first round of the Elite Four at our current level, and that is something that is easier said than done. On the surface, we have pretty decent answers to every type we're about to face. We resist a ton of moves they have, or the moves are neutral damage. The problem here is that the super effective moves we do have, in most cases, are not powerful enough, and we're going to struggle to simply outlast our opponents. At first, I was trying to get a feel of where the biggest trouble would lie with the Elite Four. Broadly, we've got Dark, Ghost, Psychic, and Fighting. Our clearest advantage is against Grimsley. By now, we've got Bug Buzz, which will do a ton of work from now on. Fury Cutter's gone. We've also got a clear advantage against Caitlyn with Bug Buzz too. And while on the surface, with Shadow Claw, you may think we should stomp Shauntal. That ain't happening. And Marshall, more difficult than you think. And I am doing this first round of the Elite Four without saving too. But let's start with the obvious one first. Grimsley. He's got Scrafty, Crocodile, Liepard, and Bisharp. Against Scrafty, Bug Buzz won't be too effective, so we'll often go with Tri-Attack, which will do the job just fine. For Crocodile, Intimidate's not an issue because we're using Bug Buzz. That is a one-shot all day long. Though Liepard will always go for Fake Out first turn, its damage is pathetic, and it's only delaying the inevitable. Another Bug Buzz is an Oko, leaving Grimsley's final Pokemon, Bisharp. The first few times into testing strategies out, I was going with Flame Charge, but in the end, the most effective move is actually Bug Buzz, which will just take it out no issue. Even if we're not one-shotting, it's not exactly racking up any damage against us anyway. So Grimsley's locked in. He is not going to be a problem. Likewise, Caitlyn the first time round, easy every time. In her current incarnation, she'll start with the Reuniclus, which will go down to a single Bug Buzz. Unfortunately, it's not going to always be like that. Though Gothitelle is a higher level, it'll get one shot just the same. For the final two Pokemon, Sigilif and Roshana, it's the same story. Our level advantage, much like Fury Cutter, was absolutely carrying us through the first time round. For Marshall, we need to make a few changes to our moves. Mainly, it's ensuring that we have a flying move. Right now, we're using Aerial Ace. Genesect can learn Fly too. There are a couple of things we need to be mindful of for this battle though. One is Throw's move Bulldoze, which will lower our speed. That will have a knock-on effect on one of Marshall's later Pokemon. The other is that a move like Aerial Ace and even Fly aren't capable of getting one-shots here, so we're banking on outlasting our foes. Another problem is Sork, who's a pain in the arse every run. Scratch that. Sturdy is an absolute ball ache every time we face it. Though a move like Stone Edge won't cause a ton of hurt, it has a high crit chance and it's still damage at the end of the day. Getting hit isn't putting us in a good position against Pokemon like Conkeldurr and Mienshao. In this instance, against Conkeldurr, we get a clutch burn with Tri-Attack, allowing us to tank some damage, but that 33 HP is important. Marshall will heal the Conkeldurr. We'll then pivot to using Aerial Ace. Two of these will knock it out, leaving us with just Mienshao. Now, if we'd not been using Flame Charge, Mienshao would have outsped us here and knocked us out. Instead, we use Aerial Ace and it crits, but doesn't knock Mienshao out. It then uses Jump Kick and we're knocked out. But there's a simple solution for that. But not one of those 3 Elite Four members compare to Shauntal. You're basically going through a gauntlet of statistical insanity for this fight, and this is only the first iteration. Let's start with why we suck. Firstly, no physical attacking boost and no special attacking moves that are super effective. We've got Shadow Claw and have to like it. Then there's Shauntal's Pokemon. Firstly, Cofagrigus. Its mummy ability ain't a problem because our download ability procs first. You only gain mummy from physically attacking Cofagrigus. More annoyingly, it has Will-o-the-Wisp. This inflicts burn, thus lowering our attack, and Shadow Claw's all we've got. This is an instant reset. You can't survive the rest of the fight. I'm sure Black and White do something with proc rates because moves with allegedly lower accuracy just never miss. It is ridiculous. Had the same issue with Stone Edge in my Volcarona run. But let's entertain the fact that we can 1 in 20 times get through to Chandelure. Okay, so this thing has Fire Blast. That is a one-shot. Yes, it's 75% accurate, but it barely ever misses. Our Shadow Claw can't knock it out without a crit, which is rare. Secondly, Chandelure has Flame Body. Again, supposed to proc 30% of the time, felt like 80. You'd get a crit, knocking it out, but then there's Flame Body, we're burned, and that is another reset. The rest of her Pokemon aren't as frustrating but still annoying because Shadow Claw is a range on the Jellicent and Golurk, and Jellicent has Cursed Body, which can disable the attacking move you used against it, which is awesome when the only effective move you have is Shadow Claw, so you simply become a punching bag for an indeterminate number of turns. What this all means is that Shauntal has to be the first trainer we take down. The couple of levels we gain on the way to her wouldn't be enough anyway. I tried it. And if you think this is a problem now, oh boy, strap in for later. Okay, after literally dozens of attempts to gain Shauntal, we've just got a run on our hands. We've got the spell tag equipped to help mitigate some ranges. Against Cofagrigus, we'll start with Shadow Claw and hope for the crit. We don't get it this time around, but Cofagrigus, instead of Will-o-the-Wisp, goes for a Shadow Ball, which happens rarely. Great. This means we can finish it off eventually, because Shauntal will then heal it, so we're forced to wait and then use 2 Shadow Claws. When it's down, Chandelure is next. We go for a Shadow Claw and hope for that crit, and we end up getting it this time around and no Flame Body. Sweet. Okay, Golurk. We are fortunate this time in that Shadow Claw is able to make that range and one-shot the big golem, leaving us with Chantal's final Pokemon, Jellicent. Are we gonna get the Oko? Well, we hit, its HP is decreasing, but no. We then see the full restore, but the battle is technically over as long as we don't get hit with Cursed Body. During our next 2 attacks, we managed to avoid it, allowing us to knock it out and defeat Shauntal. Trust me, that took forever. From here, we'll be heading over to Caitlin. This is done because she is slightly more precarious than Grimsley and I'd rather get her out of the picture. Not only this, but the way the PP works out for our chosen moves, it makes the most sense to go in this specific order. As we saw before, the focus against all her Pokemon is just sticking with Bug Buzz to basically one-shot each and every one of them without much issue. In doing this, we've also gained a few levels along the way. Right now, we're sticking with the Lucky Egg to try and gain as many levels as we can. Next on the hit list is going to be Grimsley. With the way PP's worked out, we should only have to heal with an Elixir or Ether when we're off to face Marshall. Against his first Pokemon Scrafty, we're still using Tri-Attack. This will do over half, but Scrafty then likes to use Sand Attack. It sucks, but we're often able to scrape by in the battle even with that lowered accuracy. Then, when it's down, we'll be switching to Bug Buzz for the remainder of the fight. It's enough to one-shot the likes of Crocodile without taking a hit. Unfortunately for us, Bug Buzz not only misses once, and we tank an Earthquake, it misses a second time, leaving us on 55 HP before finally finishing it off. Liepard, of course, is going to use Fake Out, no problem, we'll just miss again, and take an Aerial Ace, leaving us on 31 HP. Not looking good. Thankfully, we hit on the next turn, where it's not seeming great for Bisharp, even though we have leveled up to 58. When it's out, are we going to hit with our final Bug Buzz? Thank the Pokegods, the answer is yes. We certainly have some PP and HP to heal after that fight before we challenge Marshall. We also have to ditch Shadow Claw in favor of both Fly and Aerial Ace. There is a reason for this. We'll also need that Sharp Beak equipped too. I do play things a little risky by not using any PP restoring items, so let's hope relying on our flying moves is enough. Against Throw, it's not going to be a 2-shot, so we'll use Aerial Ace first. We're hit with Bulldoze, which was predictable, however, we're not using Flame Charge just yet. We're going to defeat Throw with another Aerial Ace. Then, when Sork is out, we'll tank Stone Edge first because we're currently slower, but after that Flame Charge, we'll move first next turn. This is where we use Aerial Ace to finish it off and avoid Sturdy and the heal from Marshall. Unfortunately against Conkeldurr, our options are limited. We can't one-shot, so I decided to go with Fly first and hope for the crit. It's left with just a sliver of health and we get struck with Hammer Arm. At 44 HP, we should honestly be fine. 2 Aerial Aces can knock this thing out. Turns out, just 1 crit will be enough though. Now, it's Mienshao. We should outspeed. This is important, because when we use Fly, it'll just jump kick and obviously crash, shaving off half its HP. Genesect crashes down, easily able to knock it out, and that's the Elite Four. But we're certainly not done just yet. Before, I'd mentioned a slight error in not choosing Snivy as a replacement for Genesect. I'd say a bigger snafu was in choosing black version instead of white, and it's here you'll understand why. We face off with Reshiram instead of Zekrom. This means when we fight N, he'll not have a Pokemon capable of obliterating Genesect with Blast Burn, and it just has an electrical move instead. However, one thing I will say is that if this were the case, we could have gone with Shadow Claw, which we need for the fight anyway, and combined that with using a few rare candies, simply hold out for the crit. This would have had a knock-on effect of making the rest of the fight much more trivial than it was, but I feel it reaches some parity in the end. But we're facing N's team featuring Zekrom. You're forced to capture one of the legendaries before the battle, which you can simply use a Master Ball for. The game asks you if you want the Pokemon in your party for the epic showdown, but we sure don't, so keep it in the PC because it'll automatically take the first slot in the fight. With that out of the way, we've got N and his team. For Zekrom, if we were in that much of a pinch, we could have taught Genesect Blizzard to deal with it. However, Bug Buzz is rather powerful, it's 90 base damage after all, and can take Zekrom past half HP. We'll tank a Fusion Bolt well enough, which is all we need to do because we can potentially get through the rest of N's Pokemon. The second Pokemon to come out absolutely debated me the first time through. Why? Well, which Pokemon in his team can damage us? Finclan? That's strange. Oh god, it's Zoroark with Flamethrower. We're done. That is not the first time I would fall for a trick like that. But on the second time round, things turn around. For Zekrom, we'll still have to tank that Fusion Bolt and stick to using Bug Buzz. It's not putting it into healing range, which is good. Again, we could have held out for a crit if we really needed it. Then we get Finclang. This time, we're hitting it with that Bug Buzz. Of course, it's going to be super effective and one-shot it. Everything from here is where Jesus takes the wheel. Caracosta has Sturdy, so we'll be taking a hit whatever happens. Our Bug Buzz activates Sturdy, and we tank a Stone Edge, leaving Genesect on 43 HP. Yep, and there is the full restore, but it's already been decided. Sticking the Bug Buzz will see us through and to Archeops. I had no idea what to do here. We have no effective moves. I just went with Shadow Claw because we might get that crit. Wouldn't have mattered anyway because it doesn't do over half. We then get extremely lucky because Archeops misses with Stone Edge that would have knocked Genesect out. But then, even though Bug Buzz isn't effective, its sheer power is able to knock Archeops out. Still not in a great position though. On low health and with a few Pokemon left, we can't be taking any hits. Then there's the real Klinklang, and our best move is Flame Charge. Though Genesect can learn Flamethrower, it doesn't get Fire Blast, so we have to rely on another Flame Charge after surviving Thunderbolt at 16 HP. N's final Pokemon is Vanillux. When it's fielded, I'm sitting there thinking Flame Charge isn't going to take us across the finish line. Bug Buzz just might though. I just go for it and yep, turns out that'll do it. And that is N. But we're not out of the ringer just yet, there's still Ghetsis. Now, you can lose to Ghetsis and you won't have to face N again. Ghetsis will just wait there to be re-fought. For us, in a run like this, that is a no-no. We have to make this consecutive, and Ghetsis' team is kind of similar to what we've faced so far as typing goes. I go into this battle completely blind in terms of ranges, and with the first Pokemon being Cofagrigus, which has given us a ton of trouble so far, I'm not too hopeful. While this one does have the Mummy ability, it lacks Will-o-the-Wisp, but does have Toxic. We can't have that happening because we won't survive at all. However, instead of attacking us, Cofagrigus wants to use Protect. It gets off the first one, and as Shadow Claw is redundant, it makes the mistake of trying to double stack Protect, and that proves to be its undoing. We hit with Shadow Claw, do over half, and take on the Mummy ability. Fine. Now it means that when we attack next, we're basically going first. So we hit it with that second Shadow Claw and knock it out. Hydreigon, though it has an effective move against Genesect, is obviously going to stand no chance at all because we've got Bug Buzz. That will serve up an Oko every day of the week. Ghetsis will then have his Electros out next. Interesting Pokemon, and we don't have anything to really exploit its singular weakness. We can always lean on Bug Buzz, which at this level will be enough to give us an Oko. Buffalon, much like Electros, is a Pokemon we can't really exploit. We'll be using Bug Buzz once again, but unfortunately it's not a one-shot and Buffalon uses Wild Charge. It's not the damage that's the problem, but the fact that it's put into healing range. Next turn, there's that full restore. While we just use Bug Buzz, I was a little concerned about the PP we're using to get through Ghetsis' Pokemon because I couldn't even remember what else he's got. We next level up to 62 and have the opportunity to learn Simple Beam, a kind of interesting move that will give the Pokemon a hit with it, the Simple ability. Not really much use to us in this run though. Seismitoad, I'm not worried about because even if we don't one-shot it, which we don't, it will love to go for Rain Dance first turn, which basically makes this one a freebie. Then, finally, Ghetsis' last Pokemon is Bisharp. As we've been here before, we know just one Bug Buzz is enough to finish this thing off, which is exactly what we used. I was in a little bit of shock getting through N and Ghetsis on the second attempt without a strong game plan in place. Oftentimes, because the battles are back to back, it takes a lot of trial and error. We definitely got a little fortunate, but the sheer power of Bug Buzz is the new Fury Cutter. Well, that's technically the first credit scene over with. While Gold and Silver have a more apparent endgame with Kanto, there's still one here because we've not really witnessed the full might of the Elite Four. If we really struggled on a few trainers first time round, how are we going to tackle our second rodeo? Our prep starts with collecting all the other rare candies that I've neglected so far. Though there are quite a few of them available in black and white, the high teens I think, I decided to tap out around level 70 because that's kind of on par with this renewed Elite Four. What's most frustrating about doing minimum battles in black and white is that there's so much content to actually engage with, but none of it is technically mandatory because the Elite Four is the only thing stopping us from reaching the game's credits. In particular, the Sages hold a number of useful TMs that would have been great to have, but that doesn't mean we're completely neutered. Leftovers is of course a must-have going forward, along with two TMs in particular, Psychic and Flamethrower. Leftovers are in the trash can by the large bridge, Psychic is on Route 13, and Flamethrower is in the Abundant Shrine. After stuffing some rare candies down Genesect's feeder hole or wherever it's got, all we can do is assess what we're up against. One important thing to note, we ain't doing this without saving, it is mental, you'll see why. Like before, let's start with the battles that are more in our favour. Grimsley. His two new additions are the Sharpedo and the Drapion. Sharpedo, though quick, isn't quicker than Genesect, so no issue there. Drapion though, that thing can be a problem with its Poison Dark typing. Grimsley will always field it second because it's got Fire Fang, and that move will do work on us, taking off well over half of Genesect's HP. The best move we've got against it would have been Bug Buzz or Flamethrower. I was going for Flamethrower first, maybe hoping for that burn, though I'm skeptical Bug Buzz would have been a one-shot, and remember, Fire Fang can cause burn too, which is a reset. If you end up getting past Drapion, which ain't a sure thing, you'll get Scrafty. As it was before, we can't reliably one-shot this thing with our most powerful flying move, Fly. At best, we're doing some decent damage and then getting hit with its Head Smash, which tends to crit. Lucky for us, Head Smash straight up misses this time, and we can finish it off with Flamethrower. But if you make it past those three Pokemon, you're home free with a Crocodile, Liepard, and Bisharp. Just one Bug Buzz is enough to cut through the remainder of his team, even though we're not exactly high level compared to them. So it's not an easy battle by any stretch of the imagination, but it makes sense that we've chosen it as our first hurdle. Next up, I ultimately decided that Caitlyn was the second member we'd take on. She's less certain than Grimsley for a number of reasons. The biggest is that at our current level, we're incapable of getting those one-shots like we did before. Bug Buzz is powerful, but it's just not powerful enough, and we need to keep hold of those leftovers too. Instead of starting with Reuniclus, it'll be the Mashana first. What's most annoying about this thing is its hypnosis. It's not even that its moves are particularly powerful, they just keep chipping away at our HP. When we eventually get past it, other Pokemon can then knock us out. Best case scenario is that Hypnosis misses, second best is that it goes for a move like Reflect instead. Bug Buzz or Shadow Claw are incapable of an OHKO outside of a crit. More often than not, we are getting past this and to the Reuniclus. Problem here is that along with not one-shotting, Thunder has a tendency to paralyze, and we can't use Fly to gain back some HP because Thunder hits through that, but then she'll bring out the big guns in Metagross. This is why we needed Flamethrower. It'll tend to use Earthquake because it's Metagross's most damaging move. Flamethrower again won't knock this thing out outside of a crit. However, it's not as dangerous as you may think. What really gets you in this battle is that because we're not sweeping each turn, we're taking damage and it slowly stacks up. For Gothitelle, its most annoying move is Flatter, which will increase our special attack but cause us to become confused. Marry this with Thunderbolt and you're not lasting long. For the Sigilyph, it's the same story, but now we're getting hit with Air Slash. Finally, for Bronzong, it's not too bad because we've got Flamethrower. The ultimately successful battle went like this. Against Mashana, we're going for Shadow Claw with the hope we get a crit. Doesn't happen, and then we get put to sleep. We're forced to tank Psychic for one turn before we wake up. But for some reason, it's not in healing range, so we just use another Shadow Claw to knock it out. Then Caitlin fields the Reuniclus. Again, I'm thinking we've got the attack boost and there's the crit chance, so just keep on with those Shadow Claws. And we're rewarded with a crit. Not only that, the leftovers have been putting in a shift, and we're at basically full health for Metagross. Against it, we've got Flamethrower. It won't give us a one-shot, and Earthquake is quite powerful, but we should still be in a good position for the remainder of a team. When Gothitelle is out, we're at 168 HP and use another Shadow Claw. It comes painfully close to knocking Gothitelle out, and there's the Flatter. Not great. If we can just get this thing out of the way, a Bug Buzz or Flamethrower should do it, and we should be okay. But I don't want to start getting hit with Thunderbolt. The luck doesn't find us the first turn and we whack ourselves, but Caitlin's potion has bought us another go. This time, we get Bug Buzz off and it's down. For Sigilyph, I should have just stuck with special moves. Genesect whacks itself again, then there's Air Slash, and we're on 63 HP. Next turn, we finally snap out of it and use Shadow Claw. Though I was a little skeptical, it does knock it out, leaving us with a final Pokemon, Bronzong. Flamethrower should absolutely do the heavy lifting here, and it does. That is 2 down. Now it's time to tackle the biggest hurdle in Shauntal. Before deciding to battle her third, I was trying from the start for reasons I don't know. I went at it for over an hour and a half, dozens of battles, just kept getting walled again and again. It's the same problem as last time, with a few extras tacked on. Sure, there's Cofagrigus with its Will-o-the-Wisp that never misses, which is an instant reset. Then there's Chandelure with Flame Body and Fire Blast, and one of those is ending the run. We've then got Jellicent, who can do some damage now, and Curse Body, of course, will always proc, stopping us from using Shadow Claw. But what compounds stuff even more now is the level difference, or lack of it. We used to be able to brute force it a little because our damage ranges were good. Now, not so much. We have to use the spell tag because if we don't, Pokemon aren't 2-shots anymore. It's difficult to articulate how frustrating it was to get past Cofagrigus after dozens of tries, only for Chandelure to wall you, or even rarer, if you got the Jellicent, getting your moves disabled or being knocked out by Golurk instead. Like, the odds are really not in our favor. I did have a move in our TM backlog that I thought could maybe help us out. Not so much with Chandelure or Cofagrigus, but at least with Golurk and Jellicent. Energy Ball, an 80 base power grass special move. This wasn't so much the key to unlocking the battle, but it provided just a little more wiggle room. Let's just look at a better battle. Against Cofagrigus, we're using Shadow Claw. With the spell tag, it's taken over half. There's no Will-o-the-Wisp, but Shadow Ball. No special defense drop. Great. That means we can definitely knock this thing out. Now, Chandelure. What are we going to get? We go for Shadow Claw. Its HP keeps going down, and there's no burn. Can't tell you how many times I thought we were on a roll, only to see Flame Body activate. Okay, Jellicent is out next. I go for Energy Ball against it in case Cursed Body activates. The move does decent damage, and there's the ability proc. We absolutely need this move to have run its course by Golurk. Next turn, a Shadow Claw will give us a win. We're on 119 HP. Don't know if it's going to be enough. Oh yeah, it's Driftveil. Forgot about that. Aftermath is truly annoying, but it can't really damage us. What is pretty clutch here is that after we use Shadow Claw, it uses Acrobatics and takes the Mummy ability, precluding it from using Aftermath. Now we get super lucky from here on out because Shauntal heals Driftveil, and I'm stupid for going for both Bug Buzz and Energy Ball. We should have just been using Shadow Claw. It doesn't bite us in the arse though, because Driftveil misses with Thunder. You finally use Shadow Claw, it ends up critting, and we level up to level 76 with 50 HP for Shauntal's 2 remaining Pokemon. By this time, Energy Ball is no longer disabled, and that will one-shot the Golurk. Our other moves wouldn't have, and it would have knocked us out, but her final Pokemon is the Frostlass. Flamethrower would have KO'd it, but we've obviously gotten rid of that, so we hit and hope with Shadow Claw, and it doesn't do enough. We're hit with Shadow Ball, leaving us on 27 HP. I think that's enough. Another Shadow Claw will finish the job. Shauntal is finally defeated. God, that took forever. Marshall's a bit of a strange one to leave until last. We actually have a pretty good advantage against his Pokemon with moves like Fly, Psychic, and Flamethrower. Against his first Pokemon, Breloom, Psychic or Flamethrower will do the job. Obviously, you want to avoid physical moves because it's got Effect Spore. Next up is Mianxiao. You can fall back on the same strat as last time. It'll use Fake Out first, but we can then use Fly. It'll use High Jump Kick, Crash, and there's a chunk of its HP gone. Sork will come out next. This thing, if it crits with close combat, will knock us out in one hit, which is always a little depressing. But with our current HP, we can tank a regular attack after using Flamethrower. I purposely go for Fly because it allows us to get a little more HP back before we're able to finish it off and make it through to the throw. Unfortunately, the level problem crops up once again. We can't quite knock it out, so get hit with Superpower. We're on 41 HP, then 55 with leftovers. I was expecting the heal from Marshall, which is what we get, so I went with Flamethrower. Now, second turn, I just go for Psychic. Probably should have used Fly. Anyway, Marshall fields the Toxicroak next. It's double weak to Psychic, so we'll prove no problem at all. We're up to level 77 and pass on learning Self-Destruct. Not really what we need for this. Marshall saves the best until last with Conkeldurr. Psychic swoops in to sweep past his final Pokemon. So that is the Elite Four defeated, meaning the champion is the only one standing in our way. Now, Alder has a pretty solid team, though it's nothing compared to what we faced so far. I will, however, give his first Pokemon, the Excelgor, some credit where it's due. Like the Zoroark, this thing totally baited me into using Flamethrower. And what does it have? Me first. So it'll go first with the move and fold us completely. Fair play. So let's not start with that move. Instead, we can actually get the upper hand on Excelgor by using Fly, because it'll end up coming down first, obviously, missing, and we'll then be able to take it out. The second Pokemon, Trusty Volcarona, has Overheat, which will O-coat us. It also has Flame Body. Again, that thing just kept proccing, but whatever. So, successful battle. We're starting with Fly. Excelgor doesn't use me first this time and instead uses Focus Blast, equally as useless. It's a one-shot for us. Then, when Volcarona's out, we'll be serving up another Fly. While Volcarona misses with Overheat, we fly down next turn and knock it out while avoiding Flame Body. It is my first time seeing the Druddigon, and I honestly just kind of throw a bit of everything at it. Bug Buzz and Psychic aren't so great. Its superpower isn't either, but it does lower its attack and defense. Soon enough, because of our low damage, Druddigon enters healing range, so Alder uses a full restore. After attacking it once again, I decided to switch to Fly because its defense is now lowered. Turns out that does the trick, kind of, because it does afford us some healing, but its Rough Skin ability deals some pain back. Buffalon is big and bulky, so Genesect once again is just cycling through moves. It's a war of attrition and we're tanking some hurt from our side. I decide to go for Fly, and that ends up being enough to finish it off and give us some much needed health back. Things get a little easier with Alder's penultimate Pokemon, Escavalier. I really can't say that thing's name. That thing is Bug Steel just like us, which means Flamethrower is gonna toast it. I'm sure the nation of France is extremely proud of our accomplishment. Finally, it's everyone's favorite Ice Cream Vanillux. Now, I thought Flamethrower would turn this Pokemon into a puddle, however, I was wrong. We do well over half, but that won't be a one-shot. Lucky for us, Vanillux went for Light Screen instead, fine by me. Though Flamethrower will cause less damage, it will be enough to hand us the victory. And that is it, we are done. that turned out to be a much more challenging run than I thought it would be. I figured Bug Steel, 1 weakness, base stat total of 600, no problem. But getting stuck on the rival early game, Elena, Fury Cutter being so pivotal, then you've got the whole thing with Shauntal being such a roadblock and that spike in difficulty for the second round of the Elite Four. An interesting and surprising run for a Pokemon I've barely heard anything about. But hey, maybe you could have made the run even easier. Feel free to let me know. If you have an idea of an interesting run in the same style, let me know. And if you want to like and subscribe, then go for it. Until next time, have a good one.